Hey folks, SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell here, and I'm back live with another episode of Leader Talk powered by Veterans Lending Group. And today I have a great friend as my guest today, and not just a great friend, but someone that I do a lot professionally with, but someone that has spent a career in the military and also is doing very well in the corporate world right now. Remember, on this show, we get after the heart of the art of leadership and the art of influence. So my guest today entered the Air Force in August 1994. He graduated from the TACP course in September 1995. His background includes 2 tours as a command chief, as well as having various duties in Army and Air Force echelons, including Special Operations Forces, NATO formal training schools, and MAGCOM staff. Throughout his career, he's filled a myriad of roles, including additional duty first sergeant as a master-rated parachutist. This is why I love this guy. With over 200 static line and military free fall jumps, airborne. His assignments have been all over the world. He's been to combat multiple times in Iraq and Afghanistan. And prior to his retirement, he served as the 9th Air Support Operations Squadron Command Chief in Fort Hood, Texas. Now, he is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Black Rifle Coffee Company, leading a diverse and geographically separated team of 13 experts across 16 separate lines of effort. This guy is someone that is a phenomenal military leader that has now transitioned into the corporate world. My guest today is retired Command Chief Master Sergeant Timothy Chachi Pachasa. Let's bring him in. Chachi, come on in, brother.
Hey, SEAC, how you doing, brother?
Good, brother. What's going on, man?
Nothing, just living life. Just flew into Boston, Massachusetts as part of the job with Black Rifle. So excited to spend a few days at the Sig Sauer headquarters in New Hampshire as they open up. They have the grand opening for their customer experience center, where Black Rifle is proud to have a counter there.
Awesome. You know, I'm a proud owner of a Sig Sauer P320, man. So, like mine's again, right?
Indeed.
Well, hey, brother, it is great for you to take time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are with your role at Black Rifle Coffee, but I've got you on here today, and we want to talk about the art of leadership, brother. So you spent almost 25 years in the Air Force, and you were one of those, kind of odd folks, a battlefield airman, a TACP. So what attracted you to want to join the Air Force, and why a TACP, man?
It's funny, long story short, my freshman year of high school is when Desert Storm happened. So, and then I was, looking at the sortie count. So I watched the war explode from the air. I'm like, wow, Air Force, that could be cool. And then my senior year, 2 months into my senior year, is when Black Hawk Down happened. And then coming to find there were airmen on the ground there. It's like, holy cow, that was crazy. Went in the recruiter right as I was getting ready to graduate high school and saw a dude doing a halo jump, jumping out, oxygen mask on, weapon to the side, rucksack between his legs. Like, I want to do that. And boom, fast forward 25 years, I retired.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And talk to us about your growth in the Air Force and your development as a leader. What were some significant things that happened to you, or any kind of education that really made you into the leader that you were and allowed you to reach that 1% that became a command chief, man?
It's you kind of have to Tarantino this a little bit, because I knew that as a young guy at Fort Bragg, from my first assignment there, supporting 82nd Airborne Division, I was always kind of consider myself a student of human nature. Well, turned out it was a student of human behavior, which became a leadership thing. And then, fast forward 6-7 years after that, and I get kicked off of a deployment, kicked out of a country, kicked out of my special operations unit. My career's in shambles. And it was all my doing, right? I really have to own that, and just had to really take a quick gut check on who I was as a human being, as an airman, as an NCO, and what people were going to think when they heard the last name Pachasa. And after I dug myself a pretty decent hole, it just became, a thought process of, what do I want people to think about when they hear that name? And it wasn't what I was creating for myself.
Wow. So what was the motivation to continue to serve? You mentioned the reasons to come in, and all that, but you continued on, and you spent, 25 years in the Air Force. What was the motivation to continue to serve? What kept you in uniform?
It was funny. I signed up for an additional 2 years when I was in basic training because they gave you 2 stripes. So I came out of basic training as an E3, and you're going into this battlefield airman type of thing. Or now I think special warfare is what the Air Force has adopted now. And at 4 years, I was a young airman doing whatever. If I enlisted for 4 years, I would have gotten out at 4 years. And at 6 years, I was a lifer. I was having a good time. I really enjoyed my job. I got to jump out of planes and rappel out of helicopters and shoot guns. And so everything from there was just kind of on autopilot. It was safe. It was good. I was relatively good at my job. And so there's no reason to change. And, it just ended up, I got a lot of cool opportunities, a lot of great assignments, some bad ones, some good, but a good random smattering to keep me interested and keep me reaching for more.
So I got to ask, being a TACP and a JTAC and everything, how many years did you spend with the Army?
Out of my whole career, like doing that, I didn't have my first pure Air Force assignment until I'd been in for 16 years. And that was 1 year. I was at Osan Air Base, and then I went right after that back to the Army, and I went to Fort Riley, Kansas. So like almost my first 20 years were pure Army bases.
So, and spent time in airborne units, special operations units, mechanized units, and everything. Did you see any differences in those kinds of units that caused you to have to adapt your leadership style as a leader? Or did you just kind of, leadership is leadership?
It was very odd. There was a lot of that adjusting to the different units. So much of it is leadership, right? You have to care about people. So whether you're in a special operations unit, whether you're in an airborne unit, whether you're a treadhead, mech, right, and any of that stuff, you just have to care about your airmen. You have to care about your soldiers, regardless. So there were isms, both good and bad, throughout that. But what an incredible opportunity I had to serve nearly 25 years in the Air Force, and then learn so many great soldier skills and have that same soldier understanding. So it was almost like serving in 2 services at once. I really thank my lucky stars for the exposure that I had to 2 services for that entire time.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the world that we live in today and the one that our young men and women are coming into the military. Obviously, globalization is a big deal. The ability to access information comes at a moment's notice. The ability to, pull out a phone and record and do recordings and stuff like that. But also in other things, you see text messages being used a lot in terms of transfer of information between leaders and the led. With today's information age and the level of understanding of electronic devices and stuff like that, what's a relevant leadership style in your opinion today? What is an approach that you think that you've seen or you've used that has been successful in reaching this generation of warrior?
This is obviously a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and something that you and I have had phenomenal conversations about and even taught together, right, through certain things that we're going to end up talking about. But for the leaders today who are really dismissive of technology, who are a little bit dismissive of a younger generation, and I hate the negative connotation when it comes to millennials, because we're even past millennials now. So that doesn't matter, right? But just realistically, we need to sit back and what is our emotional intelligent capacity to realize that all the stuff that you and I learned 30, 40 years ago isn't relevant now. That's not how we have to lead our warriors today. So we really have to put a lot of this legacy, archaic BS behind us and just realize that we need to lead differently. And it's not kinder or gentler. It's none of that. The conversation that where I first started man crushing for you is where I thought, based on your position as SEAC, where I have the point of, hey, when we go to basic training, we're not taught discipline, we're taught obedience.
Yeah.
And you're like, spot on, brother. I'm like, oh, you and I are going to get along well, right? And if you can reconcile that point inside your head and realize that maybe some of your contemporary thought process for how you apply leadership is predicated on that fact, that we were taught discipline in basic training, it was not discipline, right? Because we don't have rape inside a disciplined force. We don't have drug problems. We don't have DUIs. We don't have any of that inside a well-disciplined force. But we weren't necessarily trained for that. I get a lot of pushback on this point. You and I have seen that, and a lot of people really dig their heels in, right? And again, like, I'm not trying to be anti-government or anti-contemporary military, but it is a very interesting discussion point for those who want to have that very conversation.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that's important to me, and and I've heard this from a lot of leaders in a lot of not just military, but in corporations too, that if you're looking to instill discipline, you're looking for obedience. But if you're looking to instill self-discipline, then you're building ownership in the workforce or in the troops so that they are responsible and accountable for themselves, based off of the level of trust and everything. So your thoughts on how to get there with, kind of the things you were talking about with this generation and building this trust and getting beyond the obedience and the discipline and getting to that self-discipline.
You bet, right? And that just ties into organizational ownership, right? If you're forcing someone to purely be obedient, they will never have any ownership. They'll never have any pure felt need for the success of that organization, whatever it is. If you just go out there and bark at them, execute without giving them the reasons why, and that's the military that I grew up like, don't ask why, just do what you're told. There was a time and a place for that, right? Before communication. And that time, again, has gone the way of the dodo. So we need to realize that with, specifically in the military, 24/7 mission, global scale, building partnership capacity, you need to successfully articulate why. And that's what I'm seeing in corporate America as well, is that people still feel like they don't need to give the why. But if you don't share that why, if you don't share that perspective, then you will keep people at the nominal level of organizational commitment. And that isn't good for anybody.
Yeah. So it kind of reminds me, like you said, the way of the dodo and everything. But back when we were young troops, especially me in the 80s, even if my NCOs at the time told me what the why is, I wouldn't understand the shit anyway. So, I mean, why? And I think those leaders back then were that way. Hey, this guy wouldn't get it anyways. So just freaking move out, Troxell, and do the damn mission. We have so many youngsters now that are a lot smarter than you and I when we were young PFCs and A1Cs and everything. And the more we deliver the why to them, the more I think we can get them to take ownership. But I think the more that, however bad it sucks, whatever they're doing or wherever they're at and everything, as long as they know why they're doing it, they're going to accept it and they're going to get after the mission, man.
Or even some a little bit of that ignorance goes a long way. And then you also really have to allow for a lot of these bad things are born of the best intentions and everyone trying to do the right thing. There's a scenario that somebody told me years ago, forgive the language, but it's called the whole shit to Snickers bar, right? So a young private, he walks into the barracks, whatever, and he sees that someone took a dump on the carpet. He tells the NCO, hey, what do I do here? NCO cleans it up. He tells senior NCO, hey, we got a little carpet issue, right? We're taking care of it. Don't worry about it. NCO tells his first level of commander, hey, we're going to do some impromptu barracks cleanup, right? No issues. Don't worry about it. I got this. So by the time SEAC comes from a visit, someone's like, hey, look, someone found a Snickers bar on the carpet here today. Because everyone, again, for all the best reasons, applied their requisite level of fix, right? Not making a mountain out of a molehill. But at the end of the day, you never get your finger on the pulse of what's really happening unless you get down in the weeds and really ask the people, boots on ground, what's up.
Absolutely. Now, based on this kind of leadership approach we're talking about, what do you think are some key attributes in today's military kind of setting that are necessary for our leaders, both at the tactical, operational, and strategic level, would you say?
Sure. The key part for this, and perhaps it's just easier for you and I or military people to understand this, is the question I think you and I have asked some of the people that we've talked to is, what would a leadership basic training look like? What are those metal tasks that we would, the mission essential task list, what are these core tasks that we would want people trained on to be successful leaders? Because, we just don't bring somebody in from the civilian world, put them in a unit and tell them to go, but we do that a lot with leadership. And I definitely see that on the civilian side, where we haven't really equipped people to have those fundamental core skills to really succeed. Because if you teach leadership concepts to a narcissist, you're going to get a master manipulator. Right? Absolutely. They don't have these foundational skills on which to apply this correctly. And so for me, it really comes down to 5 hard skills. You have to talk about emotional intelligence. Boom. You have to talk about personalities. You have to talk about resilience. But you have to talk about contemporary theories of motivation, and you have to talk about communication, both the good and bad for all these things. And this is some of the stuff that you and I are focusing on is the basic training model where you equip people with these 5 hard skills and then get into advanced leadership thought to do whatever. But make sure these are instilled first and everyone has a good grasp, because if you're not building that foundation first, everything else will fall flat.
Yeah. So, folks, you're watching Leader Talk here, powered by Veterans Lending Group. And our guest is Command Chief Master Sergeant Retired Tim Chachi Pachasa, who now serves as the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Black Rifle Coffee. Chachi, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and we're going to continue on this conversation on these leadership attributes. Here's a quick message from our sponsor, Veterans Lending Group.
At Veterans Lending Group, we're not just VA home loan specialists. We are educators, community leaders, military service members, or family of those who serve. We are committed to serving, supporting, and educating our military families. 60% of our staff are prior service or spouses, and 85% of the loans we close are VA loans. We are your special ops of VA lending. We will not restrict your VA home loan benefit like many other lenders do. We believe that you have earned this benefit through your service, and we are here to protect your right to use it the way the VA wrote the guidelines. Our team can lend in all 50 states. We are here to assist you with your next home purchase or refinance, whether you are PCSing, transitioning, or retiring. Our team of specialists are here to support your family. Visit our website today to connect with a VA specialist. www.veteranslendinggroup.com.
All right, and we are back with Leader Talk, powered by Veterans Lending Group. Chachi, we want to continue down this discussion about the art of leadership here. So one of the buzzwords that I think is an important attribute of a leader, but in some cases I think it gets overemphasized, is empathy. And don't get me wrong, we all want to be empathetic to the men and women that we are responsible for in our span of control. But in my opinion, empathy is as important as other attributes that build this disciplined organization that has self-disciplined people in it, that include things like accountability, discipline, compassion, things like that. Your thoughts on this? Because I see a lot of leaders throw this buzzword out like it is a standalone kind of thing. And in my opinion, if we do those kinds of things, it could create a sense of entitlement within the organization, and that sense of entitlement can turn over and it can potentially erode readiness. Almost as bad, in my opinion, as what you talked about, a narcissist that is well experienced in leadership kind of stuff, who can become toxic and erode the same kind of things in the organization. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I am probably the biggest fan when it comes to being an empathetic leader, right? And I think Harvard Business Review just recently released an article that said that is the most profound, right? The most needed leadership trait, or the number one trait of all successful leaders, is their ability to empathize. And I think obviously you and I agree to that, but there's a limit to that, right? Bullets don't care about your feelings, just like facts.
Absolutely.
Right? And a lot of that stuff. So, and again, like there's a time to empathize, and then there's a time for tough love, and there's a time for suck it up, buttercup. It's time to execute right now. I have heard you, right? But again, my whole point is we can't just all of a sudden see a soldier on the battlefield like, hey, you okay? If you haven't cared about them for 18 months, for spin up prior to that deployment, you need to care about that the entire way. And then when it's time to execute, there's a whole lot of trust, right? There's a lot of teamwork developed into that. So when it's time to tell them, hey, we're going to go charge that hill to our death, that they will pick up their rifle and they will go execute that mission, right? That's what we're talking about. So obviously it's just a balance. It isn't the end all be all, when in doubt, default to that, because I tend to be a very empathetic person. I care about the human weapon system and what we can do to take care of that. But at the same time, the human weapon system has to execute, and they have to win wars, and we need to go out and have the best conversations, and we need to lead, and we need to communicate. We need to be profitable, right? These are all these things that just kind of transcend the whole military business kind of dynamic. And so
Yeah.
empathy, yes. Realism, yes. Tough standards, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, so one of the things that you and I have discussed before too, and this happens not just in the officer ranks, but it happens in the senior enlisted ranks, and this thing called professional jealousy, where someone gets a promotion, someone gets an advancement or a more responsibility or something, and you have some peers out there that instead of being grateful for that person, they take offense to it, and then they look to either do some kind of professional or personal harm, not necessarily in a violent kind of way, but some way like that. Have you ever had to deal with professional jealousy? And what is your advice to our audience on how to deal with things like that?
Like I've experienced that both as victim and perpetrator, right? As far as that goes, somebody else gets promoted, like that should have been me. How come I didn't get that job? How come this didn't? And so like there's a whole lot of butthurt that goes along with seeing somebody get an opportunity that maybe you were up for that didn't get, and there's a whole lot of pride when you get that opportunity that others didn't. And so again, going back to those fundamental skills, right? The emotional intelligence part.
Yeah.
If somebody gets this opportunity, this promotion, this job, this military school, because that was always cool for us to rack up as many of those as we possibly could, just get these opportunities. If it doesn't go to us, what is our capacity to sit back and look and think, okay, maybe I wasn't as squared away as I thought. Maybe this person was doing a little bit extra. And I've had to, even when I was a young airman, when I watched those opportunities that I squandered, that someone else got, that I then became butthurt about because it wasn't me. It was a kick to the junk sometimes because I really, really wanted that, but it taught me a valuable lesson. But I had bosses that really held me to task. Like, do you really think you deserve that? Do you really think you're as good as that person right there? Successfully articulate to me why. And I had to do that once or twice. And that was the reckoning that I needed to really put me on that path for, hey, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't go seen to me, or that I wouldn't see at face value, and realize that they're doing good stuff behind the scenes too, just like I was. And that maybe that was more impactful.
Yeah, I hear you. So want to transition a bit and talk about what you're doing now. You are the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Black Rifle Coffee Company. Talk to us about your journey from transitioning out, retiring as a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and to what you're doing now. Talk to us about that journey and how it all came about.
I was having a very unexpected career as far as that goes, and just had some great opportunities. Again, some of the people that you knew, like Buddy Hutchison was my command chief mentor as far as getting me into the command chief ranks and pushing me that way. And I was in for 23 years and was giving more and more opportunities and could have continued serving, and just went full stop. Hey, I need to quit. I want to go back and be a dad. So retired. I moved to Phoenix. And then a couple of months before I got out, one of my buddies, Charlie Keebaugh, he's a TACP. He was working for this company. He hired me to do like contract close air support. So, flying in the back of a A-27 Tucano, working the sensor, right, to fly and support a CAS missions. And it was a mission that I knew, a mission that I loved, but just wasn't really in sync with the ownership there and the focus and the leadership style. So left that just shy of a year, went to another job, which isn't necessarily fair to be too critical of them, because I moved over there right as COVID happened. So we couldn't get together. There wasn't any training. And so that lasted 6 months. I was like, man, I really just need something else. And then I started focusing on CAPE, my leadership company, really kind of doubling down efforts doing that. And then reached out to an old friend, Jared Taylor of Black Rifle fame, right, as one of the founders there, and said, hey, can you teach me how to do better videos? So I went out to his house in San Antonio in January of 21. And so he had his team come out there teach me videos, which is a lot of fun. And he had me on what is now the Black Rifle podcast. It was Free Range American. And so really had a good time. And he's like, hey, man, if you're not doing much, just doing your leadership stuff, I'll pay you to do some kind of admin stuff for me for a few months, just because he was running out of bandwidth. I was like, sure, man, happy to do that. So day one, so I show up there 1 February 21, and he's like, boom, okay, you're this is full time. This is what we're doing. We are moving out. And that was his speed. And it was really fun to work for, an independently wealthy person who's just an idea man to begin with, and who had no time for BS. And so it was just go, 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 go. So I worked for him, and a lot of that was loosely aligned with Black Rifle, obviously. And then towards the end of the year, as Black Rifle was evolving and moving some of their stuff around, he gave me a phone call one day, and he's like, "Hey, listen, I'm going to fire you. You're done, but I'm going to push you over to corporate. So you'll take over doing a lot of the stuff that I do with strategic partnerships for them, so he could focus on some of his stuff and then a lot of the video content, which made Black Rifle awesome." And so November of last year, moved over to Black Rifle Corporate for strategic partnerships, and it's been an absolutely wild ride, and it is just absolutely criminal. Some of the amazing stuff that I get to do and still call it a job. Yeah, like being here in Boston, but this is one of those things. And for as far as what I kind of articulate to people for what my job is and how I integrate strategic partners and influencers into Black Rifle, I call it the 5 Bs, where it's business, benevolence, beliefs, badassery, and brotherhood. And so when you look at all these things, any event that we're going to do, anything that we're going to look to leverage the weight of Black Rifle Coffee, we're going to maximize 4 or 5 of those at nearly every single chance. So showing up here in Boston, where I can go up to the Sig Sauer headquarters for their customer experience center, and number one, just be there for Sig, right? Just supporting our love for freedom and Second Amendment stuff, and then having a small coffee counter there, right? Just to leverage our love for the people who do so much for the country, and again, what we believe in with badassery and beliefs and benevolence. So it really is just a whole lot of fun, and it carries me to some great places.
Hey, so, it was about just over a year ago, you reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want you to come down to San Antonio and meet Jared, JT and everything." And so I came down there. You remember we stayed 3 days at JT's house, and I was just amazed at how talented he was in not just building and making content, but the musician he was, the singer he was, just a very intelligent guy and everything. And I thought, no wonder this guy is an independently wealthy guy, and former tech sergeant, in the Air Force and everything, TACP like you and everything. And it was just amazing. But, the other thing, you and I got to do the Drinking Bros podcast down there in Austin with Dan Holloway and Ross Patterson. And since then, we've gotten on this thing that you kind of dubbed, you talked about your CAPE lead, but we do this leader development stuff, and you've got your lead shirt on here. Ooh. So it's something that you and I have done together. Right, yeah. And we did a pilot with it at Joint Base Lewis McChord with some soldiers and airmen. Tell the audience what we're trying to do with lead.
So it really comes down to one basic thought and one basic skill. The basic thought that we've already talked about, the obedience versus discipline, because if you go back from the dawn of mankind, meaning the dawn of warfare, people, we couldn't really communicate on the battlefield well. So whether it was a bugle call, a flag, a pigeon, whatever, very, very limited. So people had to be specifically trained to be obedient so they could hear a command to go execute, because there wasn't time to breed everybody in, let them know what's going on and blah, blah, blah. Well, that is not the military that we find ourselves in now. And so again, that 24/7 global mission, you got 10, 15-man ODAs, special forces team, taking on, 200-300 ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and winning nearly every single time with an amazingly low loss of friendly life. Because everybody knows what's up. Everyone's mic'd up and they are communicating, which gets to that skill that I'm talking about with expectations. And so that's another core tenet that you and I are going around, is that if we can shift our mindset away just from passing information to leading expectations, then that changes the dynamic of the conversation completely, because people say words like expectation, leadership all the time. But then I ask them, like, hey, how many here have been specifically trained on how to manage an expectation? Crickets. Like, how many here can specifically articulate what an expectation is and or how it differs from an assumption or anticipation and a hope? And then it's crickets. I'm like, so when you say expectation management, WTF are you talking about? What does this tangibly and practically mean? Because you say it, but it's hollow and it's baseless, and you're leading with baseless BS rhetoric. People deserve more than that. And then that's what I think you and I are really committed to, really changing that understanding to really make people better, because leadership is a feeling that you can inspire, right? You can define it. Everyone defines it 1,002 different ways, but it's a feeling that you can evoke in others. And if you don't take those stair steps approach to develop that feeling, then you're gonna seem hollow. You're gonna seem flat. It's not gonna be authentic, right? You're gonna be the guy who shows up like, "Hey, John Troxell, welcome to the unit. How are you? How was your trip? Okay, good, great. I need you to go out there and clean the latrine," right? That is not leadership. There has to be this genuine nature of all that, and I'm pretty thrilled to be partnering with you so we can get that message to a lot more people.
Absolutely. So we're getting down towards the end here. I have to ask though, you spent well over 2 decades in the Air Force leading airmen, leading soldiers and things like that. And now here you are, Director of Strategic Partnerships in Black Rifle. What is different leading in a major organization like Black Rifle Coffee and also leading in a major institution in the military? Are there any differences, or are there some similarities that you're getting after because of those 5 Bs of the organization?
So luckily, a lot of people are going to have a lot of different answers to this, but luckily for me, it's very, very similar. So if you look at our founding fathers at Black Rifle, starting with Evan Hafer and Matt Best and Jared Taylor and Richard Ryan and Logan Stark and all these guys, they're all veterans, right? They're all enlisted veterans, right? So you've got this $1 billion company ran by sweaties, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of it, right?
Corporate enlisted takeover, baby.
It is really, really nice. Now, and we have some amazing prior officers like inside our C-suite, like phenomenal human beings.
Yeah.
So they are contributing every single day. But I submit op ords at work. For stuff that's going on. We still have an AAR process that closely mimics everything, right? If I need to, spit out a 5-paragraph op order to go support an event somewhere, like we absolutely do that. So the parallels for me are daily, like absolute daily. So that is a whole lot of fun, because the built-in understanding and the cool part about having the veterans all working there is that they've already experienced what it's like to think of something greater than themselves, which hasn't always been the case in the organizations that I've worked in since I retired. And it is really an amazing feeling. And again, being part of that Black Rifle mechanism is just a dream come true.
So where do you think BRCC, where are they going to go in the future? Is the sky the limit?
Absolutely. Right. So if you're asking Tim Pachasa, and again, not speaking on behalf of Black Rifle, but right. Nike is a shoe company that owns sports.
Yes.
I think everybody wants Black Rifle to be a coffee company that owns veterans and veteran support, right? And that is what wakes me up every morning. That gives me drive. And for all of our core 4 senior leaders, they're all roughly saying that same thing, perhaps not as emphatic as that. But I mean, sky's the limit as far as where we've gone in almost 8 years to going public on February 10th, earlier this year, 2022, and now moving forward. So I mean, I really think sky's the limit. And we're really trying to put our money where our mouth is and support veterans, support freedom, support the founding fathers' beliefs, and it's a hell of a ride.
Well, hey, brother. So last thing, how can people communicate with you? One, how can people reach out and learn more about our LEAD program? And then 2, how can people reach out to you if they're looking for assistance, they're looking to do things with you or Black Rifle or just with Cape LEAD? How do they get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way to do that is just hit me up, chachi.pachasa@blackriflecoffee.com. And so you see the name there on the screen. Now it may take me a few days to get back to you, but I really try and do that on Instagram. I'm at Chachi Pachasa. Twitter, I'm at Tim Pachasa. Email me if you have questions. Like if you want John and I to come out there and just talk some of this stuff. If you like what you're hearing, right, then by all means, let's set up a call. And we really would just want to shake things up a bit. And not that anything that anyone is doing wrong inside a military and or corporate sense, but maybe we just can evolve our thought process a little bit more, and we'd love to be part of that catalyst.
I think the words that you and I use with the LEAD and how we tag team this is, raw and authentic. And I think that's what attracts us to the troops, but I think it's what attacks our kind of leadership training to corporate America as well. So Chachi, my brother, thanks for being here today. I thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know you're in a hotel room in Boston, getting ready to do your thing with Sig Sauer there, but thanks for taking time out to be on the show today. I really appreciate it, brother. And look forward to linking back up with you again soon.
You bet. Absolutely. Hey, SEAC, I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Thanks to Veterans Lending Group for having me here. This is always fun, and we'll definitely talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Chachi. And to our audience, thanks for turning in. We will see you next time on Leader Talk by John Wayne Troxell with SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell, powered by Veterans Lending Group. We'll see you again soon. Boom.